What's up, my friends? Happy Friday to all of you. Happy SEC tournament. Happy hoop season. Happy March Madness. You name it. We're here. We're here to give it all to you as we break this thing down, getting ready for the SEC basketball tournament. This pregame sponsorship brought to you by Andrews Sports Medicine. We appreciate them and all their support of all our sports coverage here at AL.com. And, of course, we appreciate my good friend, New Bias. What is up, New Bias? Hanging out, doing his thing. I know you and Tom Green are going to kind of trade the torch a little bit as you prepare to cover not only the SEC basketball tournament in Tampa, but then also the NCAA tournament and what that kind of looks like. So big game coming up today for the Auburn Tigers, 11 a.m. Central Time tip-off. They will take on Texas A&M. Texas A&M beating Florida 83-80 in overtime in the second round. So certainly a hard-fought game there and a Texas A&M team that's going to come in swinging. But before we get into that matchup, first, New Bias, first of all, this is your first basketball season, I guess, on the Plains, getting to cover Bruce Pearl and the Auburn Tigers. Take us through the narrative of this season and really what stands out to you about this Auburn basketball team and how they essentially got to this point in the season where they are potentially, hopefully, looking to land that number one seed in the NCAA tournament if all goes well here in the SEC tournament.
Well, it started out with signing a young man named Jabari Smith, who ends up being freshman of the year, one of the top players in the league, probably going to be a top 5 draft pick. From there, it also gets a man named Walker Kessler, the 7'1" guy out of Noonan, transferred from North Carolina, and has been able to make it really happen on the Plains. You look at Kessler's averaging nearly 5 blocks a game. He impacts the defense in so many ways when he is at his best. Because what it does is it makes it pretty impossible to score on the interior against Auburn. It's very difficult. It's not an easy task with Walker Kessler there. By the way, Walker Kessler, as being a defensive player of the year, takes a lot of pressure off Jabari Smith defensively so he can then focus on his offense, which is why he is freshman of the year. And so those combinations, literal twin towers, okay, has changed the whole course of what Auburn is.
Yeah, no doubt. And so you kind of went down the list there. You got Bruce Pearl, SEC Coach of the Year, Jabari Smith, SEC Freshman of the Year, Walker Kessler, SEC Defensive Player of the Year. And it's just ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. Those guys obviously doing big things. And so, when you look at just the combination, what this team brings to the table, obviously just the energy that comes behind this Auburn basketball team. We know what Bruce Pearl is all about. Just a fiery guy, someone that ignites that fire. So looking kind of ahead at this SEC basketball tournament, in your opinion, what does Auburn need to do really well to not only get the win against Texas A&M, but to kind of solidify potentially an SEC championship and a number one seed in the NCAA tournament? Who needs to play well and what needs to happen for this Auburn basketball team to have success, in your opinion?
Well, keep doing what they've been doing. First of all, start there. I mean, typically speaking, but
what's not broken, right?
There you go. I mean, listen, three conference losses, only 4 in the year, and pretty much all your losses were road losses, except for the one in the Bahamas. You lost to a ranked UConn team. You lost to a ranked Tennessee team, a ranked Arkansas team, and you lost to Florida, who now you don't have to face again, which honestly gets into something here. If they would have had to face Castleton, the big center from Florida, that could have been a situation where Walker Kessler could get into foul trouble. The matchup hasn't been a favorable matchup for Kessler, one of the few players who could really get him into trouble. Texas A&M doesn't present those problems. So first of all, assuming Walker Kessler's shoulder injury is okay, expect him to stay on the court. Auburn does sometimes get itself into foul trouble. Now, depending on who you ask, some of those fouls may not be fouls, but nonetheless, they're called. So Auburn's going to have to do a better job of playing defense with their feet, making sure they're not fouling or getting called for fouls, making sure that happens. Also, Auburn does sometimes have the scoring lulls. Somehow, when they get cold, everybody gets cold.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to figure out ways to work around not going 6, 7, 8 minutes sometimes out of field goal. Their defense has been the most consistent part of it. It starts with a healthy Zep Jasper on the defense as far as one of the point guards. You look to him to make sure you keep things from getting too out of hand on the perimeter, filter everything back to Kessler and Smith and make it happen from there. They're going to need to be good. Also, your bench has to travel. Bruce Pearl likes to go 10 deep. So that's going to be Jalen Williams. That's going to be Dylan Cardwell. That's going to be Wendell Green coming off the bench, a.k.a. the young microwave. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to give them that name after, Vinny Microwave to Johnson back in the day, Kids Google that, 80s Pistons. Y'all may not know what that is, all right? But Auburn's at its best when KD Johnson stays consistent, doesn't start playing over his head, and makes the shots that are in front of him. Get the ball to Jabari Smith, the big 6'10" guy who's very athletic and score. Get him the ball early and often. Make sure you get Walker Kessler his touches. Keep him out of foul trouble, and I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, I think that's a really great assessment of this team and really just some of the key areas that this Auburn basketball team can focus in on to have success through this tournament. And as you said, when they're hot, they're hot. When they're ice cold, they're ice cold. And in my head, I was thinking about Outkast when, the Hey Ya song and ice cold, ice cold. Anyways, that,
Indeed.
The DJ in me goes into the music mode. Okay, so with that being said, again, Texas A&M, they beat Florida 83-80 in overtime in the second round. Obviously, Auburn kind of getting the break. So, they're coming in fresh today, which should certainly play well in their favor as we wrap up this segment here and get ready for tip-off again at 11 a.m. Central Time. Just your overall thoughts. What does Texas A&M do really well? Kind of what you've seen from and in taking some pieces from the games that they obviously played each other in the regular season. Just your overall thoughts on this Texas A&M team and how they match up against Auburn in this one.
Well, one of the things that Texas A&M does really well, they get to the free throw line. Against Auburn, they got to the free throw line a lot in both contests. Now, Auburn was able to win, but they get to the free throw line, and Auburn fouls a lot. So, or gets called for fouls a lot, depending on who you ask. All right. But nonetheless.
Well, that's Auburn fans. We know the Auburn fans here in the comment section will be happy to let us know that.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure they can have scenarios and circumstances and scenes where the fouls were phantom to them. However, they were called, whatever reason. So that is one thing. They also are a pretty good rebounding team, Texas A&M. Sometimes Auburn struggles on the boards. They can't get beat on the boards.
Yep.
Even in the last home game, you know who their leading rebounder was?
Tell me.
Wendell Green, the guy who's under 5'10". Wonderful young man, but he probably shouldn't be your leading rebounder.
I should have guessed that. Yeah.
I mean, again, unless it's just a weird scenario or whatever have you. So there are times where Auburn struggles to crash the boards. Texas A&M rebounds well, and they play hard. I mean, listen, they're going to come out. They're going to come ready to play. This is a team that got 21 wins after beating Florida. This is a team that is trying to get in the tournament, and they would love a win over Auburn. So Auburn's going to have to come ready to play. Noon's early. By the way, they've been practicing at 11, 10 when they were in Auburn before they left Auburn.
Okay.
On Wednesday, they head down to Tampa. They had an early practice yesterday on Thursday to kind of get acclimated because if Auburn goes all the way in this tournament, all the games will be early games. All right? Yeah. Which Auburn typically plays at night. That can be a little bit of a thing. Sometimes those early things can be a little twisty. But on the flip side, if Auburn's able to beat Texas A&M, it gives them a huge advantage over their next opponent because their next opponent will play in the night game.
Gotcha. Yep.
So Auburn has a chance to be off its feet, relax. Assuming they beat Texas A&M, that could be very valuable, particularly if you get to Sunday.
Yeah, no doubt. I love where your head's at with that. Yeah, and it certainly makes sense. Obviously, getting out there for an early practice, and I know that those guys had some pretty good energy out there, and I think they're ready to play. They've got their head on a swivel. And there's no doubt in my mind that Bruce Pearl won't have those guys ready here as we get ready to tip off here very shortly. So with that being said, I want to say thank you to Tobias Wilburn here with AL.com to break it all down. He will be with us again for postgame, so stay tuned. When Auburn wraps up, I guess, their game later today, we will be breaking things down and kind of carrying you the rest of the way through the SEC basketball tournament. So again, Auburn tipping off against Texas A&M here very shortly, 11 a.m. Central Time. And we'll check in with you here in just a little bit. So Tobias, thank you. And thank you again to our sponsors. And